signal. Well, good afternoon, CNMI. How's everyone doing in this lovely afternoon? We got, it's January 29, 2025. We're live, full in color this afternoon. So for everyone who's tuning in, or if this is your first time watching our podcast, this is Advocacy Amplified. Today, we have a very special guest where we will slowly introduce. So my name is Joshua Meneses. I am a project specialist. My whole responsibility of being a project specialist is that I'm responsible for doing all of the outreach, trainings, and to share a little information about the great work that we do in our office. And of course, it's not an episode without my lovely companion right here. She's here in the way left, or your right if you're watching. I'll go ahead and pass it on to her for her to introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Josh. My name is Tiavato Amata. I'm a project specialist at NMPASI. Alongside Josh, again, we do the outreach, trainings, but we're on top of that, we're also caseworkers.
Caseworkers, yes.
So we do handle client cases that come through NMPASI. Again, NMPASI stands for the Northern Marianas Protection and Advocacy Systems Incorporated. We love our acronyms here, and throughout the episode, I'm sure you're going to hear a lot more. Helps us keep track, but we're better known as NMPASI. Our mission is to protect the civil, legal, and human rights of individuals with disabilities throughout the CNMI, and we provide legally based advocacy to protect the rights of individuals with disabilities. And today we are so grateful to have our first returning guest on our podcast. If you remember our humble beginnings with a Zoom recorded podcast on an owl back in our conference room, our first guest on the podcast outside of our own office was Mr. Philip Santos, who held a different role at the time, but Philip has lots of talents and is now sharing his talents, accolades, and titles, and he is now sharing his talents with the Northern Marianas Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and pass it on to our special guest this afternoon, Mr. Philip Santos.
Thank you very much for having me, Josh Tiava. So again, my name is Philip Santos. I am a program coordinator with the Northern Marianas Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, or we like to say NMCADSV for short, or even shorter, the coalition. So as a program coordinator, do similar actually to your roles as project specialists. A lot of the training, a lot of the outreach. Particularly, I am here because I am chairing our upcoming awareness month in February, which is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month.
Yes. Which is the topic of today's podcast episode. It is the end of January. January was such a busy month for us all, I'd say, recovering from the holidays and kickstarting the new year. But what better way to end our January episode with promoting what's happening in February here in our community. Like Phil said, he is the chair and the lead coordinator for the Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And we're going to go ahead and pass it on to Phil to really explain what the theme is, what's going on, some community events, and a lot of planning that has gone into place for this month that the committee has put into, especially with the members of the coalition. So take it away, Phil.
All right. Thank you so much. So very, very briefly, I'd just like to share what teen dating violence is. For those of us who may not be aware or familiar with the concept, teen dating violence is a pattern of controlling behavior that someone uses against their romantic partner. And the core of dating violence is power and control. You know, oftentimes when we hear the word violence, you know, the first thing that we think of is just someone being physically hit or physically hurt. Yes. But, you know, through my work at the coalition, where we try to educate our community is it's not just physical, right? It can come in many, many different forms, psychological, emotional, and it's something that a partner likes to use to keep their other partner in that relationship. And so they whatever power, whatever control they have, right? They want to keep you in that relationship. So they'll do whatever they can to keep them there. And so we really go out into the schools, into the community, really teaching our kids and our youth what healthy relationships look like,
Yes.
what unhealthy relationships look like, red flags, green flags. The kids like to engage with these terms and these concepts. And with Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, it's really about increasing awareness of abuse in teenage relationships, empowering our teens to make healthy choices in their relationships, and to end the devastating cycle of abuse, right?
Mm-hmm.
We pick up from October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and as we go into the schools, we realize that abuse is a cycle, right? Probably some of these kids have experienced or witnessed domestic violence or abuse in the home, and so they grow up thinking that these are normal behaviors or these are things that are acceptable in relationships. And so one of the presentations that we do give at our schools is called Love is Respect. And I feel that's very, very fitting because our theme for 2025, as identified by the Love is Respect organization, is respect that. Respect that, right? So we like to use action verbs as themes or things we want to be, something that's actionable. It's a call to action. And so it's a call for our community. When we say respect that, it's about treating our partners with dignity, listening to their viewpoints, respecting their boundaries, and valuing their autonomy by focusing on respect.
Yes.
All right. So we always emphasize to our teens, if you're trying to think about your relationship, is this a healthy relationship, right? It always boils back to respect. Do you feel respected, right? If you feel respected, you feel safe, you feel trusted, right? Then that's a sign that it is a healthy relationship.
Yes. Thank you, Phil, for touching on that. It's what is determined as healthy really is shaped by a lot of media and propaganda and based on
the fact that things are just so accessible nowadays with
social media, what's again the terms of what's a red flag, what's a green flag. It's emphasized in movies too, right? People might think that I want to be treated this way, or relationships are supposed to be like this. Like I'm supposed to get treated like this to get the good at the end. I'm supposed to know what bad feels like first. And sometimes that's not the case. I'd say most of the time treating another person badly is not the case at all in a relationship. But about educating the community again, especially our youth, who is a very vulnerable population in general. And I'm glad you guys are going to the schools and allowing them to listen to this perspective and go through these presentations, and maybe they can have their internal checklist of, oh my gosh, am I the red flag, right? Because it could be the other person, but also in a way, if that person is the red flag in a sense, is the one attending these presentations, they can be like, maybe I shouldn't treat this person this way anymore. Maybe, it offers that other perspective that's not so much talked about. I feel like the topic of abuse and violence in general is often shunned. And maybe you can concur in the work that you do too with that.
It's interesting that you brought that up, because that's actually some of the reflection questions that I do pose to the students. After listening to this presentation, maybe of course we're victim centered primarily at the coalition. So if you, after this presentation, maybe you realize that you are experiencing dating violence, then these are the resources that you can be connected to. Or if you see maybe your friend right is sharing that these red flags, and then who you can connect in. And the last one I share is what you touched about, right? If after this presentation you realize that, oops, that's me, right? I am showing some of these red flags, how can I improve? And so we really did update this presentation to not just focus on red flags, because we could just tell the kids, avoid the red flags, end of story. Right? But to be holistic about how we educate our youth, we also want to promote that, hey, these are not just the stuff you need to avoid, here's what you need to replace it with. Or these are the healthy behaviors that we want to promote in these relationships. And so if you assess like, oops, okay, I have these red flags, we also empower our youth that these are some of the things you want to work towards.
And another thing I really liked that you've shared, Phil, is like how violence doesn't have to necessarily only be physical. Because like when we think about violence, right, we think about a person's being at physical harm, right, whether they have bruises or things of that sort. Violence could be different things, right? It could be abusive patterns or behaviors too, right? And I really like how you highlighted that, because like at least for me, like, when I grew up in an age where I just thought violence was just something physical. But now in this day, as we're spreading more awareness about it, we're educated to know that other forms of violent behaviors could be abusive patterns too, and maybe those things could end up becoming violent in the future, right? So it's kind of good that you've like highlighted it early on.
Yeah, and just because you've touched on that, I'll briefly share some examples, right?
Yes,
Just to give
please.
our audience an idea of like what are some examples of teen dating violence. So we have what we call our power and control wheel. These are some behaviors that an abusive partner may use against their partner. One example is isolation or exclusion.
Yeah.
This is something actually that growing up, I didn't know was a red flag. I had friends who were in relationships,
Yes.
and every time I wanted to hang out with them, or wanted to play some video games, I'd ask them, "Hey, bro, are you free? Are you available?" And they'd always say, "You know what? Let me ask my girlfriend." And back
Yeah.
then I thought, "Hey, that's super sweet." They're like,
You're just informing them, right?
Yeah,
Out of
like, out of
courtesy.
"Oh, they must be so in love." He's gonna ask his girlfriend, but
Yeah.
the girlfriend always said no, right? So
Yeah.
my friends who entered into relationships, they started drifting apart, from us and our other friends, because they were being isolated
Yeah.
by their partner. And now I'm working in the coalition, and I always share this example with the students that I present to, because I was like, now that I'm working with the coalition, I realized that the partner was being controlling. It's not
Yeah.
actually something that is romantic or sweet. It's actually an example of power and control.
Yes.
We also talk a lot about a lot about consent
Consent.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a big one.
in our schools, especially a lot of partners like to use peer pressure or sexual coercion, and so we teach kids about consent using the acronym FRIES.
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 Who doesn't love
Who
fries?
doesn't know fries, right?
Especially if it's McDonald's.
Oh yeah. Not sponsored, but
I mean, if you want to.
all right. So fries, consent. We always tell kids, consent has to be freely given.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So if I force you to say yes, that is not consent. Right. It is reversible. If your partner says yes initially, right,
Yes.
they can take it back at any point, or as you are performing whatever action or behavior, they become uncomfortable, they can take away their consent at any point. I is for informed. Your partner needs to know exactly what they are saying yes to. If you hide any details from them, then that is not full consent.
Yes.
E is for enthusiastic. They have to be, both parties have to be 100% game. Right, even though they verbally say yes, but in the non-verbals you can tell that they're not really saying yes, then that's not consent. Lastly is specific. So consent only applies to a specific action and to a specific time. Right. So if I, for example, ask Tiamo if I can give you a hug,
Yes.
right, and you say yes,
Yes.
right, that doesn't mean that I can sneak in a kiss. Right, because you only said yes to a hug,
Yes,
right?
that
And if you
action that was
say,
identified.
if you say yes to being hugged today, that doesn't mean I can hug you after the show,
Yes.
or if I can hug you later or the next time that I see you, right? You have to ask each and every time. And so the kids are like, oh, that's, because usually we ask them, what do you think about, or when you hear consent, right? Usually they just say, consent is permission or asking for permission, right?
Yes.
So while that's it's a good starting point, we want to educate them, that for consent to be 100% to be full, it has to
Yes.
meet these specific dimensions, and so I think that's another big part that we try to because media, as you
Yes.
both of you touched upon, right? Media portrays consent very, very differently. So we really do our best to educate our youth. And Josh, earlier you were talking about while we're on the topic of media, right? How media sort of shapes how youth view, healthy and unhealthy relationships. We recently had a podcast filming with PSS Mental Health.
Wow.
That's coming out in February. I'm jumping ahead and plugging it, but this is something I wanted to talk about on the air is representation of healthy relationships in media, particularly for our LGBTQIA plus youth. One of our panelists was brave enough to share, their perspective from an LGBTQIA plus, identifying as being part of that community, and they sort of share that how growing up, in the media, there was no representation of what it is to have a healthy queer relationship. Right. Only recently there's been big waves and big movements about that. But I think it's important that we also recognize that a lot of how our youth see or view relationships is shaped by the media, and so it really brings the role of the coalition and bringing this awareness to the schools to help them kind of better understand what it is to have a healthy relationship, both for those who are heterosexual and for those who identify as LGBTQIA plus youth. And the data shows actually that they here in the CNMI they do report experiencing higher levels of dating violence than their heterosexual peers, which I feel it's very, very important also for us to be inclusive in the way that we present our material, and really we're reaching a wide range of youth. So
and that's great. What better to replace, or not necessarily replace, but combat current media that's out there than producing and putting out your own, right? That promotes the right message and promotes healthy relationships and different perspectives from our youth. Youth is such a general category that you don't realize that there's different breakdowns and sections to it, whether it be social economical backgrounds to sexual identity, to age. It's just so many ways you can break down youth, but I'm glad these perspectives are going to be pushed out in February with these podcasts, and we're grateful too that you're here sharing to this audience that we have too, and then I know you have other media stuff that you're doing in February, but for the information you shared on power and control, like there is a lot of trauma that is associated with a person who's experienced or is experiencing teen dating violence. And trauma is often an onset for disabilities. And a lot of mental health and mental illness disabilities such as depression, anxiety, even post-traumatic stress disorder from a traumatic event such as experiencing different forms of violence. And we just want to remind the community that should you feel at any way threatened or unsafe, discriminated, NMPASI as well as our partners are there. At least us specifically is through the legal route. If you had any specific form of discrimination, should you have been diagnosed, there is a legal way that we can assist. But there's, again, the coalition, I'd say, is one of the best resources you can go to if you don't know where to start, because you guys have such like a plethora and big, I'd say, resource directory that you can refer properly. And I haven't met a person who doesn't have a good relationship with the coalition, because you guys are always out there promoting, again, a safe CNMI, right, to end violence and nourish healthy habits and healthy relationships. And I believe you're doing so with the events that you're hosting in February. If you want to go into a little bit of what...
I have a question too.
Sure. I was really segueing. Go ahead, Josh, please.
So before we move on to the next topic, Phil, you touched a bit up earlier before that you and the coalition have done so much great work by going to the school and educating students about, and spreading awareness about teen dating violence. I just kind of want to ask you, what are some of the very interesting questions that you've received from the audience, from the students?
Oh, that's a good one.
Let me think. I think we get a lot of
Like on the top of your head, like when you're presenting and they'll be like, Mr. Phil, I have this question, and they ask those kind
I
of
think
things.
usually, so we have a part of the presentation where we give them scenarios.
Scenario.
Oh, yes.
That's interesting.
And
Yeah.
so it's let me see if I can remember it from the top of my head, but it goes something. The line goes something like, "I didn't mean to hurt you.
Oh.
You made me upset. If only you had listened to me." And so
Oh, okay.
and
I
so we
see.
ask the
Ah.
kids like, do you think this is a healthy or an unhealthy
Response.
like behavior or like an
Mhm.
example? And so usually if it's it's a morning or afternoon class, we get them to stand or sit. And
Yeah.
usually for that scenario, at least for the classes I've presented to, we get mixed um, reactions.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Right?
that sometimes just split down the middle too, huh?
Some of them have shared, right? I won't say what school, but they when I ask them why they maybe have mixed reactions, they're like, oh, sometimes you're just so mad that you want to hit them, right?
Yeah.
And so they say that this is something that they've witnessed in the house, or maybe something that they and their siblings do to each other. If you get really really mad, then you just lash out.
Yeah.
Right? And so we emphasize in that scenario that while our feelings are, our emotions are valid, right?
Yes.
We are responsible for our own behaviors, our own
Behaviors,
actions,
actions that
right? We
follow
always
through.
have a choice, right? Whether or not we want to hurt someone, right? We tell the kids, there's no excuse for abuse,
Yes.
right? And we emphasize, in that scenario, the word I
Mhm.
appears once,
Once,
Mhm.
yeah.
right? And the word you appears 3 times, right? You
Mhm.
made me upset, right? It's like it's your fault, right? If
And
only
you
you
didn't
You did,
you
listen.
didn't
yeah.
listen,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
And
It
I
makes
think
it sound like one-sided,
right,
right?
there's no apology, right? They're blaming you,
Yeah.
right, as if it was your fault. And actually, some kids have actually shared that um, that's along the line of sometimes they hear that from their parents.
Mm.
Um, you made me mad or you didn't listen to me. This
Yeah.
is why you get hit, right? And so
Mhm.
that's where we also recognize that abuse, violence is a cycle,
Yes.
It's a
right? They
cycle.
see it at the home, so they think
Yeah.
that it's normal, and so we kind of get mixed reactions to that scenario. But again,
I
we
can
yeah
imagine.
we
Yeah.
emphasize, and I credit my coworker Zari for this example. Right. So if we tell the kids, if you walk into a table, right, and you get hurt, we're like, whose fault is that? It's mine, right? Because
Yeah.
Yes.
I walked into the table, right? The table did not move itself into me. And so we tell the kids, it's the same with abuse,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
You're hurt because someone chose to,
Walk into you
right,
like the
hurt
Yeah.
you,
table. Yeah.
right? So we give the kids that example and kind of connects more
Yeah.
Yes.
with them, and then we just always emphasize, no matter what you're feeling, if it's love, right? If you respect someone, if you love someone, you're not gonna wanna hurt them,
Mm-hmm.
right? If so, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
scenario that we've.
And I'm kind of very and thank you so much for that response. And the reason why I asked that is because like with all of these presentations and outreach that you guys are
Mm,
doing, targeting the school. And you did mention that you found more success in providing scenario-based questions
mm,
because, like what Tiava did mention earlier, you would get a mix of response in the beginning, right?
mm,
Maybe one person will say, "This is what I was taught when I was a younger kid," and then maybe
mm,
another kid would be like, "Oh no, that's wrong." And I believe with those responses, it being split, you guys take the opportunity to educate and correct and see
mm.
which is the right route to do, which is the right action to be doing and stuff like that. So I really do appreciate that, all the good work that you and your team have been doing, and I hope you guys spread more awareness on teen dating violence. Yeah. So any other events that are coming up for the month of February?
Yes. All right.
Sorry for the interruption.
No,
Oh,
It's
you're
just
no.
good.
it hits me right at home because I used to work at PSS before, and I just miss working with the kids,
students,
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes the questions that they bring out, it's like me being an adult already. I'm like, oh, I never really thought about that. It
Mm.
kind of gets me off guard.
Thank you for that, though,
Yeah.
Josh. That was great.
So for February, I had to print this so I don't forget. We are kicking off Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month with our proclamation signing. That is on Monday, February 3rd, 10 a.m. at FMS in San Antonio. It will be in their cafeteria. Seating is limited. It is a small space, so it is first come, first serve. But if you are unable to join physically, then you can stream it on our Facebook page and also through Mariana's Press. We'll be featuring some performances from our last year's Know Your Worth winners who happen to be students from FMS. So they're very, very proud of their students, as they should be. Throughout February, we're also conducting a bunch of school presentations, as we've talked about briefly.
Nice.
This month, we have covered Saipan Southern High School, Hopwood Middle School, and tomorrow we will be concluding with FMS. In February, we have MHS, so we're covering 9th grade and 10th grade for MHS. And we are also going to be presenting to the seniors of Cagman High School.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really, really important. We're also entering prom season very soon. And so when my month is done, we move into Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I'm jumping ahead, but a project for that I'm really, really proud to talk about is Project Prom.
Love it.
Just to briefly to plug, we are open for donations for Project Prom. For if you have prom attires, we are seeking more male attires, but we still welcome female attire as well. So Project Prom is just because it ties in with teen dating violence as well. We do a workshop with the students about consent, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and then afterwards they get to shop for their their prom clothes. And so we do have I don't memorize the drop-off locations from the top of my head, but that's available on our social media pages. Please do donate. We're looking forward to being able to support more students this year. So okay, that's that. Project Prom for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, but just so it ties in with our presentations at the schools. We will have 2 radio shows on KKMP who will be led by our youth panelists. So that's going to be on February 12th and February 26th. Details about the broadcast will be shared on our social media platforms. To further support awareness efforts, we have our roadside waving on February 13th, not 14th. Don't worry, you guys can all still do your Valentine's stuff. So it's on Thursday, February 13th, starting at 4 p.m. This is again in partnership with FMS, our hosting school for Teen DVAM. This year, it's going to be at the Chongkondaok Pavilion. That is across MHS. They are like done more or less with the road there, so we're hoping they don't break it up anymore or do whatever. So we picked that because it's close to the schools. It's a bit more central location.
Good traffic.
This has
there
got a
on
lot of
work
cars,
too,
a lot of cars going there.
And if you have orange, please wear orange.
Orange is like
is there a specific day on when to wear it?
Orange for that day, Thursday.
Oh,
roadside
Thursday.
Yes.
Roadside
Orange
waving.
is the official color for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. Our signature event for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month is our Know Your Worth art, essay, and spoken word competition. Just as a reminder to our students, the deadline to submit is January 31, 5 p.m. if you are submitting physically to our office. And if you want to take a bit more time to submit digitally, you have until February 2, 11:59 p.m. Please,
like a college assignment.
please make sure you have your student information sheet that is signed by both you and your guardian. We don't want you to have to go through all that effort to not have it, be eligible because you are missing that form. Once we close the deadline, we'll have our judges. Thank you to all our volunteer judges for volunteering their time. to identify our winners. And the grand finale will be on February 27, 2025 at 6 p.m. So we'll be inviting all the finalists for our spoken word category to perform their pieces live during the event. And the winners for the art and the essay will also be invited, where they will be receiving their awards.
Nice.
The event is open to the public, but seating is on a first come, first serve basis. And for all updates on Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month and anything else coalition, you can follow us on our Facebook and Instagram. That is at End Violence NMI. And you can also find our link tree on both, which has our what you mentioned earlier, our resource directory.
Oh, yes.
Nice.
Has a bunch of resources that you guys can access. And very soon, we will be launching our website.
So
Ooh,
an official website?
Yes,
Oh, wow,
so that
that's
is
cool.
endviolencenmi.org. Right now it's under construction, but if you visit the page, you can subscribe to the mailing list, and it will let you know like once the page is officially launched.
Is this the first time you mentioning it? That you guys are gonna be having a website?
I think so.
Then you heard it first here
Josh wanted to
on
claim it.
Advocacy Amplified, right? Thank you, Phil, for plugging that here.
Our,
Josh is so proud.
We're
our,
proud to have our guests.
our communications manager Hani has been working very, very hard on that. It looks great on the back end. I can't wait for you to to see. A lot of people ask us, do we have a website? Not everyone is familiar with social media, and
Yeah.
websites tend to be more accessible
Mhm.
than social media, and so we want to be able to engage the community in a broader scope and format. And just to wrap up my little spiel here, if you or anyone you know is experiencing any form of violence, right, help is available. Please call 911 for immediate emergency support or the Cardot Victim Hotline at 234-5100.
Wow, Phil, thank
Thank you
so
so much, Phil. Very informative.
I know, so
right?
informative, to the point, giving us all the data and facts. We appreciate you. Is there any final words you'd like to say and any shout outs you'd like to give?
Yes.
Shout out to my team at the coalition.
Woo.
I hope you're tuning in.
If not, it'll be available for playback.
And just a big shout out to all the schools.
Yes.
We've been very, very blessed and fortunate for the support that we've been receiving from our different schools. Just welcoming us in and really giving us that space, holding space for us to educate our youth about healthy relationships. And we hope that you join our movement to end violence here in the CNMI.
Yes.
And
A lot of great work.
blaming,
Yeah.
great stuff. Phil, I'm
Anything
surprised you
else?
didn't shout out Run Cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
It
not
could
like
be
someone
anything
just
personal
completed
too.
A
Oh my
26-mile
God.
run
Yeah.
on Monday.
Okay, fine. Shout out Run Fan.
The pressure.
This guy did 26 miles, I believe,
On
just
Monday.
on a Monday.
On a
Like,
Mon-
And he still went to work, and we still had our committee meeting for the TD BAM. And I
imagine,
didn't even know.
imagine me waking up on a Monday. I don't want to
would've
be on
taken
a
this
Monday,
whole
right?
week off.
I was hoping for another holiday on Monday.
And Phil's running a mile, like 26 miles around the island.
That's his holiday. Well, again, Phil, we really thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to really have you on our episode. And again, like what Tiava did mention, this takes us way back. Well, not really way back. This was just last year. And it's
May.
really in May. It's
May.
been such a pleasure to really have you be our special guest. And we look forward to having you in the many more episodes to come, because with all the information and knowledge that you've gained from your experiences in your contribution to the community here in the CNMI, that should be highlighted. And what platform to promote that with partnering with us, and also with the great work that Mr. Brad has been doing for hosting our episodes. And we wish you guys in the coalition nothing but success moving forward with all of your events that are coming up. So again, for anyone tuning out there, If you want to know more information about the coalition, please feel free to reach out to Phil, reach out to their Instagrams, their Facebooks, their links, or you can contact NMPASI and we can refer you to them because they've been such a great partner to us.
Yes.
And aside from that, thank you, Phil, for being on our show. T, do you have any shout outs specifically?
Specifically to the Eagles. Man, take it from the Chiefs. Boo! But just shout out to the TD BAM committee that Phil's been spearheading. I've been attending the meetings virtually
Yes.
on every Monday, and they've been very good with like updating us, keeping us informed, letting us know where we can contribute and where we can help. It's a great committee to be a part of, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. Shout out to our team holding it down at the office, Team NMPASI, the posse. And also just shout out to everyone who's going through a tough time right now.
Yeah.
A lot of worry and anxiety.
A lot of changes.
A lot of changes happening out there with many different things, both in our government and in our own personal lives. So,
I know.
Keep on hanging on, man, guys. Find your source of strength and go to it.
Yes,
How about for you, Josh? Any shout-outs?
Well, nothing so much for me. I'm just looking forward to a really great Super Bowl in about 2 weeks from now.
Who's your team?
Well, I used to be a Minnesota Vikings fan, but it's unfortunate that they keep falling short in the playoffs. But they do so well in the postseason. But who am I to say that? But I will just enjoy this game just as a whole. Me being a fan of football in general, American football. And just shout out to my family who are up in Washington. I'll be seeing you guys very soon. Shout out to my specific half back at home. And nothing. I just hope you guys have a really great afternoon and a wonderful new year so far. So I'm Josh.
I'm Tiava.
I'm Philip.
And this is NMPASI Advocacy Amplified.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Oh, no,
next week.
Next episode.
Next episode, all right? Thank you so much
Thank
to
you.
Mr. Brad.
Next week.
Next week.
Next week, that's so fast.
Alright.